Yeah. Okay, let's head off to Chloe Swarbrick by the looks of it.
Oh,
I think she's the
yay.
only Chloe on the Finance and Expenditure Committee.
I was just wondering if you could help explain what's occurring or what your understanding is of what's happening in figure 4.2, page 28 of the monetary policy statement, particularly on economic activity in selected sectors. So what we can see from that is in the first 9 months of this year, that production GDP growth was pretty much isolated to home ownership and rental services and to government services.
Whoa,
The decline in
that's
manufacturing,
fast.
wholesale trade services, construction.
I was going to say, you might need to take Chloe down a
I've
little.
got some more granular questions, particularly about kind of the sensitivity to monetary policy, which you obviously speak about in box A following that.
I think we might have to go to.
But I guess, if you could just explain what the impact of monetary policy has been to see that occur, and the intersection potentially with fiscal and what you see as the role or the parameters of monetary versus fiscal and impacting those different sectors.
Yeah, thanks, Chloe. So, I mean, the interesting thing about, from a sort of more academic perspective about this period we've been going through is the slowdown in the economy. It has been, to a large extent, engineered by the Monetary Policy Committee, by higher interest rates. So in terms of, and it's been broadly flat over the last 2 years. It might be a little bit up now, GDP growth, given the revisions that, or the hinted at revisions that came out yesterday. But within that, there's been unders and overs. And because the slowdown has been engineered by monetary policy, it's been those sectors of the economy that are sensitive to interest rates that have slowed down. And you can see that in figure 4.1, the kind of more goods, Karen talked about them earlier, goods producing, retail, construction, manufacturing, all those types of industries that are sensitive to interest rates have slowed down, whereas other parts of the economy, have grown through that period. And a lot of that is home ownership and rental services. We've had very strong population growth. Government services, business services have, on average, sort of contributed or sort of offset the declines in activity that we've seen in those other more interest rate parts of the economy. So kind of going forward, as interest rates fall, sort of cutting back to the earlier question, we think it's those bits of the economy that are sensitive to interest rates that are sort of going to lead in terms of that economic recovery, whereas those other sectors will probably just, keep trucking along doing what they've been doing anyways.
Yeah, I guess if I may just finish that point, because obviously, CPI inflation figures out of stats show that actually rent price inflation is double what CPI inflation is. We just also had that question from Catherine regarding the changes to the interest deductibility rules and bright line test and how actually that's potentially going to result in higher inflation and particularly housing. So I guess, to your point just then, Paul, about how monetary policy was engineering the kind of slowdown of the economy. Given that we now have a situation where kind of RBNZ is saying that we want to speed up the economy, i.e. that we want, more spending, but we've got kind of austerity or contractionary fiscal policy in place, how does that play out? And, does that not mean, especially with those specific fiscal policies around kind of interest deductibility and the bright line test, that we're not just going to see more runaway kind of house price and rental inflation? And how do you see that playing out?
Yeah. So like in terms of rents, we've got one measure of the stock, the rentals across the stock of houses, and then we've got a measure of rentals of rents, for the flow, for sort of new, or as tenancies kind of change over, and that flow measure is dropping as you'd expect. We've got weaker population growth. Migration has fallen pretty dramatically, so we would expect that to feed into the kind of stock measure through time. So I'm not sure if we explicitly sort of forecast rent prices, but we're not, with the housing market in general, we're not projecting a sort of runaway house price, and I would think that's about the same, with rents. On fiscal policy more generally, in a way, we sort of, take what we're given from the government. They set fiscal policy and we adjust interest rates accordingly. If we think fiscal policy, or if we think the economy is growing too fast and fiscal could be a component of that, then we do what we've been doing. We have good communications with the Treasury. We have a Treasury observer in Monetary Policy meetings, so we feel we're well up on what's happening fiscally, but essentially we sort of just take it as a given and adjust interest rates accordingly.
And I guess further to that point, I mean, I'm back on the whole use of kind of distributional impacts, i.e. who are the winners and who are the losers as a result of decisions that are being made here. And, Karen, in your opening remarks, you were talking about spare capacity in the economy. There we're talking about people who are unemployed or underemployed, and we know that those figures have gone up. These are real people, and same goes to kind of when we're talking about housing and what the ostensible drivers of kind of growth for GDP growth are. We're talking about higher house prices, same goes for CPI inflation at the moment with higher rental prices and the suffering that renters are going through. So I guess has there been any analysis? I couldn't, in my read through monetary policy statement, yesterday and today, I haven't managed to find any specific notation of it. But I guess just how do you see this playing out with regard to kind of inequality in the country in the last year as a result of that interaction of monetary and fiscal policy decisions?
Like I sent you a note actually after our last FEC on inequality. I'll follow up on that and make sure that you got it. Our stock standard line to that, which is right, is that monetary policy is a really broad tool. And as Karen was saying on the radio this morning, it's kind of it can be messy from a sort of allocative perspective, but there's not a lot that we can do. We all use the same money. We don't have sort of separate interest rates for different groups in society. So it's up to other arms of the government to deal with the distributional consequences of monetary policy and distributional consequences in general. Your stuff on the labour market is interesting. Like definitely monetary policy puts a cycle through the labour market, but if you want to get unemployment, for example, down on average over the cycle in a more structural sense, there's policy settings that the government has at its disposal to there's options for that.
What we do, what is really clear though is that inflation affects everybody, and the best thing that we can do is ensure that we have low and stable inflation, because that will create greater certainty. It does improve investment in the economy, and that is to the benefit of everybody across the economy. So that is the best thing that the best tool we have available in order to be able to support better economic wellbeing for all New Zealanders.
And as far as, just to, I guess, clarify and to round that out, if I may, with my final question, Chair, what you're saying there is monetary policy is a blunt instrument as far as the distributional impacts, i.e. potential greater inequality that we may be seeing as a result of higher house prices, unemployment, and otherwise, is something for the government to deal with through fiscal policy. Thank you.
Okay, Nancy.
Okay, so let's hold off on there. Chloe, as usual, hitting it out like crazy.
Fucking queen. That's why.
Yeah. So what's the name of the cat, since everyone's asking? I think someone's may have already put the answer.
I put it in there. It's Stretch. Her name is Stretch Armstrong. We call her Dingus because she's a dingus. She's a cat. But yes, she's a ragamuffin. So she's very fluffy and very big. 7 kgs.
Oh, is that huge for a cat?
Not for her breed. So her breed, the females get up to around 7 kgs and the boys get up to 10 kgs. So
oh god,
it's a very big, she got fat ass.
Yeah. Okay, I think the next one is Nancy Lou, because I think she's the only Nancy MP we have.
And regulatory.
Good morning.
And let's speed it up.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure we won't need them slowed down now.
Sorry.
Good morning and thank you, Chair. So my question is actually, first part of my question is a follow-up to Barbara's comments and questions around the US election. So in your answers, you've also mentioned that you have not yet done a model in terms of what the possible impacts could be with the new US government and the potential raise in tariffs. So can I understand, will a model be done? And if so, how? When are we expecting to hear something from you, or you won't be doing a model?
We'll be incorporating it into our existing modelling technology. And we'll no doubt do empirics, we'll do research on